symbolism, fewer topics, infrequent prophecies, and more repetition than any adherence to consistency. In his voluminous translation of the Quran entitled in his voluminous translation and commentary entitled The Holy Quran, Muslim scholar A. Yusuf Ali concedes on Roman numeral page 30 that, quote, the same things are repeated over and over again in the Quran. Because Ali is acutely aware of the fact that the Quran is much more chaotic than Muslims would like to admit or have others to know, he also concedes on Roman numeral page 21 that, quote, a stranger to the Quran on his first approach to it is baffled when he does not find arranged in a serial order the enunciations of its theme, its division into chapters and verses, separate treatment of different topics, and separate instructions for different aspects of life. On the contrary, there is something with which he has not been familiar before and which does not conform to his conception of a book, unquote. Yes, there certainly is. And that something is a tremendous amount of disorganization and metaphysical meanderings. Ali's confession goes even further when he states on the same page, quote, the same subject is repeated in different ways and one topic follows another without any apparent connection. The speaker and the addresses and the direction of the address change without any notice. That is why the unwary reader is baffled and puzzled when he finds all these things contrary to his preconceived conception of a book. He begins to feel that the Quran is a book without any order or interconnection between its verses or continuity of its subject, or that it deals with miscellaneous topics in an incoherent manner, unquote. Of course, all of the above resembles the kind of cover-up employed by biblical apologists. The real reason readers feel that the Quran is a book without any order or systematic connection is that it is. And that's a pretty good reason. For the sake of simplicity and coherence, we'll discuss those issues of most interest to non-Muslims that expose the Quran for the fraud that it is. For purposes of simplification, we should note that while the Bible is divided into chapter and verses, the Quran is divided into surahs and ayats. There are 114 surahs and thousands of ayats. If one saw 367, he would know that he was dealing with Surah 3 and Ayat 67. What follows are crucial messages that emerge loud and clear from the teachings of the Quran. First, the Quran propagates a message of intolerance, brutality, and barbarity toward non-Muslims. Surah 551 says, don't take the Jews and the Christians for your friends and protectors. They are but friends and protectors of each other, unquote. This passage displays not only contempt for Christians and Jews, but an appalling ignorance of historical events. All too often, Christians and Jews have been barely able to stomach one another's presence. Surah 533 says, the punishment of those who wage war against God and His apostle and strive with might and main for mischief through the land is execution or crucifixion or the cutting off of hands and feet from opposite sides, unquote. Intolerance of this magnitude exceeds that of the New Testament, because the New Testament never goes so far as to actually advocate the execution of all those opposed to the key figure. Surah 936 says, fight the pagans. 3361 says, wherever they are found, they shall be seized and slain without mercy. And 9:5 says, Fight and slay the pagans wherever you find them and seize them. Believers in the Quran are urged to be no more open-minded than Old Testament Hebrews. Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini is far more representative of Quranic Islam than the liberal Muslims and PR agents that you see and hear on the media. Surah 16, 118 says, "To the Jews we prohibited such things as we have mentioned to thee before." And 26, 55 to 58 says, "These Israelites are but a small band, so we expelled them from the gardens, springs, treasures, and every kind of honorable position." The intolerance exhibited by these verses resembles that of the Christian treatment of the Jews by the Spanish Inquisition during the reign of Ferdinand and Isabella. Surah 5:38 says, "As to the thief, male or female, cut off his or her hands." And Surah 8:12 says, "I will instill terror into the hearts of the unbelievers, smite above their necks, and smite off their fingertips." While discussing unbelievers, the Quran says in Surah 489, "They wish you would reject faith as they do, and thus be on the same footing as they. But if they turn renegades, seize them and slay them wherever you find them." This is also the message of Surah 491. As you can see, tolerance, humaneness, and restraint had never been among Islam's strong points. Second, Muslims must be paranoid if they really believe Surah 4:101, which says, "For the unbelievers are to you open enemies. The unbelievers wish to assault you in a single rush." Third, in many cases, Quranic legal procedures are unjust and brutal. Surah 24:2-4 says, "The woman and the man found guilty of adultery or fornication are to be flogged with 100 stripes. Let not compassion move you in their case." It further states that a man guilty of adultery or fornication can only marry an adulteress or an unbeliever. Fourth, the Islamic attitude toward divorce propagates sexism and male supremacy. Surah 2:229 says only 2 divorces are permissible, and 65:1 lays down the absurd rule that when a prophet divorces a woman, the latter is not to be expelled from her house unless she is guilty of some lewdness. What kind of divorce exists when both parties are forced to continue living together? Fifth, Surah 4:3 says, "Marry women of your choice, 2, 3, or 4. Muslims support the disgusting practice of polygamy, in which a man gathers wives like a bull gathers cows. 6. The Quran reeks with sexism and male chauvinism, and no amount of apologetic claptrap can prove otherwise. Surah 2:228 says, "Women shall have rights similar to the rights against them according to what is equitable, but men have a degree of advantage over them." How's that for double talk? Women shall have equal rights, but men have an advantage over them. Surah 4:11 says, "God directs you as regards your children's inheritance. To the male, a portion equal to that of 2 females. Surah 4:176 says, "If there are brothers and sisters, they share, the male having twice the share of the female." One can't help but notice the degree to which Islam and Christianity are in agreement on the importance of keeping women in subjugation.